Hi, I'm Jessica. This is our collaborative team project about Harold. Next slide, please. This is the case study that we were given about 9-year-old Harold. This is a mind map diagram that I made to map out the pertinent information about Harold's medical history and his vision. Next slide, please. This is our problem. The second step in the collaborative problem-solving process is to gather as much information as possible to clarify the problem with the entire team. As a team, we're going to talk about what is Harold doing or not, what is the behavior occurring or not, do we know what is expected of Harold, do we know if Harold has the skills to do what is expected, and what are the solutions that have already been tried. In answering these questions, our team can focus on our two questions. How can we implement a structure and routine when working with Harold? And how can we train all staff to reduce the complexity instead of jumping straight to being all done with the task? Next slide, please. Through understanding Harold's visual diagnosis and needs, we understand that Harold's actions, or quote unquote behaviors, are a result of how he sees and interprets the activity or the environment. Harold communicates all done when he is feeling challenged or things are too much. Now our entire team needs strategies to help Harold complete the tasks. These are the basis for creating and writing our objectives and IEP goal. Next, please.
Hi, it's Haley. I'm going to talk about the needs of Harold. So Harold is a big multi-sensory learner. So it's important that we always have manipulatives and other sensory input along with the visual stuff. He also benefits from non-complex environments and non-competing sensory channels. So it's important that when we're presenting these multi-sensory inputs, it's not happening all at once in a really complex way. He also uses some assistive devices that should be accessible to him whenever he needs them, as well as very specific font for print words. He's got that 60-point green font. And he also benefits from clear instruction and expectations, so activities with a clear beginning, middle, and end, as well as encouragement to communicate his needs in a functional way. We can go to the next slide. So we created these goals and objectives so that Harold can practice self-advocacy skills and increase his participation in his classes by communicating his needs and making choices throughout his day. So for our first objective for Harold, we want Harold to communicate when an activity is difficult to him by choosing between an array of 3 options that are presented both visually and tactually. For our second objective, we want Harold to choose where he would like to complete the activity in the hopes that it will increase his participation in his classes. So he can choose to do his activity at his desk, facing a wall, or in a separate room entirely, wherever that may be. And for our third option, we would like Harold to choose between 2 different activities, once again, to try to increase his participation. And these will also be presented visually and tactually. Next slide, please. So these are some examples of the kind of feedback forms we'd be creating for Harold. So for whether the activity is difficult or not, it could be color-coded by using green, yellow, and red for comfortable, challenging, and frustrational. These can also be represented using tactile 3D objects, like a green ball, a yellow pyramid, and a red cube. For the placement of his activity, like where he's doing it, his desk could be represented by a tactile symbol that is also on his physical desk. If he wants to do something facing a wall, the black felt that those felt boards feel like. And for a separate room, it can be a symbol associated with that room. And for the activity, we could just hand him the physical materials needed to complete that activity so that he can choose between them. And all of these should be presented both using his print, Braille if necessary, depending on his Braille level, and the tactile objects. Next slide.
This is an outlining of the training that we will provide to the entire team. First, we will talk about a common understanding of how the visual system works. Then we will talk about what a disruption to the visual pathway or a diagnosis of CVI is. Lastly, we will talk about how Herald CVI manifests in the classroom and how do we observe this. We want to build the reason for a common goal with the team by facilitating empathy building experiences. Here are 2 resources that we would share during our training. Yellowstone's blog entitled How Do You See can be a powerful conversation starter among the team members, sharing how challenging it is for our students to compare what your vision is like compared to something. Again, going over specifics that will clarify the problem is the second step of collaboration. The first image is a picture that we can dictate what visual complexity looks like, and it was taken from Math's Accessible lecture. Image 2 is a example of a tool that can be shared with the team to help everyone remember what modifications to make for Herald. Next slide, please.
Hi, I'm Amy, and we talked a little bit about the environment aspect of Matthew Tietjen's What's the Complexity, and now we're going to talk a little bit about the task. So what we're looking at on this slide is the visual from Designing an Accessible School Day for Ava, Part 1, by Matthew Tietjen. So it looks at the loop, the sort of chicken and egg feel of the whole, is it the collaboration meeting and then make the modifications and then the student feedback and then the parent input and then have a collaboration meeting and then make modifications again, and it goes over and over. Next slide, please. We do want to have a weekly collaboration meeting. This is one of the things that was mentioned in the UNH study, which was part of our lit review, but they talked about having a weekly time to meet throughout the week. Next slide, please. And so there's going to be an initial collaboration meeting agenda. This collaboration meeting is really an informal check-in. It's very important that the parents are involved. The initial meeting is going to set the agenda, and Michael is going to go into the aspects of the agenda in depth. Next slide, please.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about, this is Mike, and I'm going to talk about the electronic documents and the way of collecting information and sharing it out with everybody. As Amy said before, it's important that everybody has kind of access to this information. And what we created was a Google form that collects demographic information of who is inputting information, their name, email address, phone number, and a brief description of what they're uploading. They'll be able to upload any type of information into the Google form, a image, a video, a document, a picture, PDF. And once they click upload to that, it's going to be placed in a shared Google Drive where all stakeholders are going to have access to it. So once whatever information they put in will be collected in this folder. And then their responses will be recorded in a Google Sheet. And the Google Sheet, you can see the layout here, the way it's organized, has their name, email address, phone number, the date it was inputted, and then there's a live link here that will take you to the actual information. The tabs at the bottom will be separated out by medical and educational to be able to find it. And this will be a constant running record from once it started for as long as Harold is around, in school, to be able to have this living document. And a great thing about this tool is that all stakeholders can get notified when a new information is uploaded into the Google Sheet. You can go here, notifications, add your email address in, somebody uploads the information, you get an email that somebody uploaded information. And this is a great way to communicate.
This is Demetra, and we chose to do our literature review on a literature review that discussed the evolution of IDEA and collaboration. In 1975, the Education for All Handicapped Children was established. Schools were required to provide a free and appropriate education and least restrictive environment. It stated this would facilitate collaboration between special educators and related service providers to best implement the IEP. However, at this time, the children mostly received services separate from their peers. In 1986, it was reauthorized to include early intervention services. In 1990, it was reauthorized again and named IDEA. New disabilities were added, including autism and traumatic brain injury, and it mandated the individual transition plan. 1997, IDEA was reauthorized, and the definition of developmental delay was expanded to be used for students up to 9 years old. It included dispute resolutions through mediation be provided for parents. In 2004, it was reauthorized with new regulations that discussed multidisciplinary teams that would include parents, general education teachers, special education teachers, school representatives, and a professional who could interpret test results. And it was about around this time that students began to be included more and separated less from their peers. It is noted that collaboration is referenced several times in all carnations of the law, including statements such as promoting improved collaboration between special education and general education teachers, and working collaboratively in classroom settings, and ensuring the involvement of parents in planning and decision-making with respect to early intervention, educational and transitional services, and promoting collaboration between IEP members. We believe this information is pertinent to this class because from its incarnation in 1975 to present day, the law stresses collaboration. Next slide.
Hi, it's Amy again. So we also looked at professional organizations promoting collaboration. Number one that we looked at is the CEC. It's important because of the ethical principles, but as it is also important because they really and in their special education professional preparation principles, they put collaboration as one of 7 important principles. So that's important. NACIT really looks at colleagues and professionals collaboration, and NEA looks at parents and caregivers working together. Next slide, please. Okay, then there are additional collaboration resources. We found that the individual states had some really interesting things to say about collaboration. So Massachusetts is mentioned here with a quote. Also, the second reference looks specifically at talking about how administrators can support collaboration, which is important. Next slide, please. And our second slide looks at the recommendations out of Montana, and they have so that their occupational and physical therapists don't make their own separate goals, but make goals in collaboration with other team members that go onto the IEP, so they work collaboratively. The UNH study, which I mentioned before, even goes so far as to suggest that there are weekly meetings and that those weekly meetings are added into the IEP. And then Marilyn Friend, with her over 40 years of experience, give us a lot of insight into collaboration. So our team really looked at how the medical model works for them in looking at how we can use the electronic together with a collaborative meeting approach to seek solutions for Herald. Thank you.